Today I'm going to show you how to tie a really effective trout fly in 5 minutes. Then I'll show you going to Ravensthorpe Reservoir in a boat with my son and catching a trout on it. At the end of the video I'll show you the materials used in case you want to tie some yourself. You will also see a spectacular sunset. First of all, I start by threading some black tying silk in the bobbin holder. The bobbin holder is not essential, but it does make tying the fly easier. I will go through in more detail what equipment and materials you need to make this fly at the end of the video. I will also set a timer going when I start making this fly. I'm selecting an orange marabou feather. I'm choosing one that's really fluffy and a bright orange colour. I'm now cutting off a piece of orange chenille about 3 inches long for the body of the fly. I'm now beeswaxing the silk to make it grip better while I'm tying the fly. It's not essential to use beeswax, but I do find it helps. Now, starting with the silk at the bend of the hook, lay it along the hook to the eye and start winding back over it from the eye back down to the bend of the hook. It doesn't need to be perfectly neat, as it will be underneath the body of the fly. Now I strip the orange fluff off the last few millimetres of chenille. I tie that onto the hook with the chenille pointing backwards. I wind the silk back at the hook to just before the eye, and then I grip the end of the chenille with a pair of hackle pliers. I am now winding the chenille as evenly as possible up the hook to just before the eye. The hackle pliers aren't essential, you can do it with just your fingers. Now attach the chenille firmly to the hook with a few turns of silk and cut the end off. Carefully cut 2 or 3 inches of marabou off the feather, making sure that the strands are the same length and keeping them in a tight clump. Lay them on the top of the fly in the position that you want them to be. As I'm right-handed, I hold them between the finger and thumb of my left hand and wind 2 coils of silk quite loosely round them and the hook, and then pull it together tightly to hold them in position. This technique ensures that the feathers remain on top of the hook instead of rolling round to the side, as would happen if you wound it round once. I did wind a few more turns of silk round to hold the feathers firmly in place before I cut the loose ends off. Now I'm winding quite a lot of silk round to form the head of the fly or lure. This is the tricky part, to tie a whip finish to complete the fly. Have a look closely at how I do this. If there's enough demand, I'll make another video to show this in more detail. I loop it round 10 or 11 times, and this makes a sort of whipping on the end and stops it from coming undone. Now we've finished the making of the fly in about 4 minutes, but we still need to varnish the head. For this we'll use some nail varnish. If you don't happen to have any, try pinching some from the wife or girlfriend. Now the fly is finished, we'll go and try and catch one on it. This is Ravensthorpe Reservoir to the northwest of Northampton. I'm using a really slow sinking double taper 7 intermediate line. I'm bringing it in quite slowly using figure of 8 looping. I'm doing this with my right hand as I'm holding the camera with my left hand. This gives a constant retrieve instead of a stop-start retrieve that you normally get pulling in. I've felt a good pull and I'm into a fish. Oops, I let go of the line. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe.
Looks a bit bigger. Smile.
I use barbless hooks so the fish are quite easy to unhook. Off she goes. This one wasn't quite so lucky. This one's going to be poached. That's the cooking technique, not the fishing technique. I just cover it with water, heat it until it's really boiling and leave it for about a minute. Then let it cool down for about 8 hours and then it's ready to eat. Now for the materials to make the fly. Firstly, there's the hooks. I use Camazan size 8 and size 6 for this particular pattern, sometimes also size 10s. There's the nail varnish for finishing off the fly and the beeswax for making sure that the silk grips tightly. Then you need a sharp pair of scissors. These can be purchased from Boots, and then the pair of hackle pliers. The hackle pliers aren't really essential. This is a pack of orange marabou. This can be purchased from a fishing tackle shop or online. The orange chenille can be bought from a fishing tackle shop or online. This is the fly tying silk and the bobbin holder. And lastly, the fly tying vise. This is quite an expensive item, but you can buy quite a cheap one or a second-hand one. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe.